All my dear students of class 8, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the revision session of lesson number 8, that is water. Let's proceed with this second session of revision for this chapter. Is what is water of crystallization? That is, it is the fixed amount of water, that is the number of water molecules which are chemically combined in a definite molecular proportion with salt in its crystalline state, and it's called water of crystallization or water of hydration. For instance, when you write COCl2 0.6 H2O, so this 0.6 H2O is water of crystallization. It is the number of water molecules that are attached, is that clear, that are attached or chemically combined in definite molecular proportion with a particular salt is the water of crystallization. And this water which is added is called water of crystallization because they give the crystalline form to the compound. So water that is included in these compounds is called the water of crystallization because it imparts a crystalline appearance. So this water of crystallization is loosely held with the substance. So when you heat the substance, this water of crystallization separates out and it gives a non-crystalline form, that is an amorphous form to the compound. For example, when copper sulfate, which is blue in color, it is hydrated copper sulfate with the water of crystallization. You can see this 0.5 H2O, it is known as hydrated copper sulfate, and this is blue crystalline solid. When it is heated, this water of crystallization separates out and this changes its crystalline form and turns into a white amorphous form or white powdery form. Is that clear? Again, if you add water to it, it will regain the hydrated form and crystalline form. Is that clear? So this is how it is taking place. So what are crystals? So a crystal or a crystalline solid is a homogeneous solid, is that clear, in which the particles, that is atoms, molecules or ions, are arranged in a definite geometrical pattern to form a three-dimensional structure. So it has a highly ordered microscopic structure, and the process by which the crystals of a substance are obtained by cooling its hot saturated solution is called as crystallization. So I have just shown you that on this basis, on the presence of or absence of the water of crystallization, substances can be categorized as hydrated and anhydrous, as I had shown you when I had told you about the heating of copper sulfate. This is known as hydrated copper sulfate, and this is without water of crystallization, this is known as anhydrous copper sulfate. Is that clear? So similarly with other compounds like washing soda or with white vitriol and so on, there are so many other hydrated and anhydrous compounds. So hydrated substances, the substances that contain water of crystallization, are called hydrated substances. Example are hydrated copper sulfate, hydrated ferrous sulfate, Epsom salt and so on. Exactly. Anhydrous, the substances that do not contain water of crystallization, they are called as anhydrous. Anhydrous, that is without the water of crystallization. So common salt, then potassium nitrate are examples of anhydrous substances. Is it clear? Substances which contain water of crystallization are called hydrated, and which are without water of crystallization, they are known as anhydrated substances. Then what are efflorescent substances? So there are certain substances which are hydrated, otherwise they lose the water of crystallization partly or completely when they are exposed to dry air. They are known as efflorescent substances. So examples are sodium carbonate, that is washing soda is an efflorescent substance, that is it loses its crystalline form and partly or completely depending upon the number of water molecules attached. And Glauber's salt, that is sodium sulfate 0.10 H2O. So washing soda, the formula is Na2CO3 10H2O. Similarly, we have the Glauber salt, that is Na2SO4.10H2O. Is that clear? So these are examples of efflorescent substances. And sodium carbonate, that is this washing soda, it loses all its water molecules when it is exposed to air and loses its form. Is that clear? But the Glauber salt loses 9 of it out of the 10 water molecules. Is that clear? And when exposed to air. Then we have another phenomena, that is deliquescence. So deliquescence is what? It is the reverse of efflorescence. So the phenomena through which some crystalline substances, when they are exposed to the atmosphere at ordinary temperature, they absorb moisture from there and lose their form completely, that become moist and lose their crystalline form and get dissolved in water. It appears in the form of a solution. Is that clear? So this phenomena is called as deliquescence, and the substances which show this phenomena or show deliquescence, they are known as deliquescent substances. The phenomena is known as deliquescence. Is that clear? So example of deliquescent substances are ferric chloride, caustic soda, and calcium chloride. Is it clear? Then next is hygroscopy. So the ability of certain substances to absorb water vapor from the atmosphere when they are exposed to it without getting changed into liquid solution, as you had seen in the form of deliquescent substances. So such substances are called as hygroscopic substances. Even our human skin is hygroscopic. Is that clear? So such substances are concentrated sulfuric acid, phosphorus pentoxide P2O5, quicklime, that is calcium oxide, then anhydrous calcium chloride. These are all examples of hygroscopic substances, and these are also used as drying agent because they tend to absorb the moisture without changing their form. They don't turn into the solution form. So they just because they are used as drying agent, so they are what is the purpose of using them? Because they remove water from other substances without themselves getting changed, that is, they do not react with those particular substances. So we use silica pouches. This is the most common example in water bottles or such containers which are unused, or even in camera lenses, in order to protect them from moisture. Is that clear? So they absorb the moisture from other things and make them dry. Is that clear? Then the chemical properties of water. So pure water is neutral in nature, that is, it shows no effect on litmus paper. It is neutral. It is neither acidic nor basic. Is that clear? And it is a stable compound and does not decompose on heating at ordinary temperature or by some physical means. It can just be decomposed by the process of electrolysis. Is that clear? That is, by passing electric current through acidulated water, which we have already studied in earlier chapter. That is, when the temperature is raised above 2000 degrees Celsius or when it is electrolyzed. These are the only two conditions where water can be decomposed into its constituent. That is, water can be decomposed by passing electric current or by raising the temperature above 2000 degrees Celsius. It changes into its constituents, that is, splits up into its constituent, that is hydrogen and oxygen gas. Then what is the reaction of water with metals? So the water reacts with metals to form hydroxide and hydrogen gas, and it reacts with non-metals also. It reacts with non-metals like carbon to form the superheated, or on passing superheated steam over red hot coke, a mixture of carbon monoxide and hydrogen gas is produced, exactly as you can see in this reaction. Now you can see that on the reaction of carbon and water gives water gas, that is a mixture of carbon monoxide and of hydrogen is water gas, and this is a good fuel. Is it clear? In reaction with chlorine, that is hydrogen reacts with chlorine, water reacts with chlorine in diffused sunlight, and the condition that is there is, of course, it is diffused sunlight is the first condition that should be there. Unless and until there is diffuse sunlight, this reaction will not take place in the dark, and in the in direct sunlight there can be an explosion. That's reaction is explosive. So it forms hydrochloric acid and oxygen, because initially what is happening, that is when chlorine gas is passed to water in the presence of diffuse sunlight, hydrochloric acid and hypochlorous acid are formed, and this hypochlorous acid is unstable and it eventually decomposes to hydrochloric acid and oxygen. Then reaction of water with metallic oxides. So this, you can see this, that oxides of sodium, potassium, calcium, they react with cold water and form the respective hydroxides similarly. And these reactions are exothermic, that is exothermic reactions are reactions in which heat is evolved. So they form their respective hydroxides. Then reaction of water with non-metallic oxide, they also result in the formation of the non-metallic oxide, that is the carbon, or you can say carbon. The non-metallic oxides are carbon dioxide and phosphorus pentoxide and so on. They react with water to form the corresponding acid. Is that clear? Similarly, the reaction with sulfur oxide and water, that is, it forms sulfur trioxide, and similarly the reaction with sulfur trioxide and water gives you sulfuric acid and so on. The tests for water are that we all know the boiling point and freezing point of water, that is, boiling point is 100 degrees Celsius and freezing point is 0 degree Celsius at normal pressure of 760 mm of Hg. Now here you can see the cobalt chloride paper, which is blue colored, and when few drops of water are added to it, it changes to pink color. Is that clear? Then if few drops of water are added to white colored anhydrous copper sulfate powder, color changes to blue. Then we know about the soft and hard water, that is, we use soap to wash our hands, cleaning utensils and washing clothes. And there are two types of water, that water that does not contain salts of calcium, magnesium and forms lather with soap, as you can see here, it is soft water. And water that contains salts of calcium and magnesium and does not form lather with soap, it will not form such lather with soap. Is that clear? You can see this froth which is coming out from the soap when you mix it with water. This is not the case with hard water. So this contains salts of calcium and magnesium and does not form lather. Example, the sea water, or sometimes the water we are drawing from the ground also, that is also hard and it is not fit for cleaning purposes, that is, it does not form lather with soap. Well water is also hard water. Then what are the types of hard water? So hard and soft water, that is water which readily gives a lather, and water which does not form lather is called hard water, and which forms lather is called soft water. Then I have told you that hardness can be temporary hardness and permanent hardness, that is temporary hard water and permanent hard water. That is, water that has calcium and magnesium bicarbonate dissolved in it is called temporary hard water, while water that does not has water that has calcium and magnesium chlorides and sulfates, it is called as permanent hard water, and it is not removed by boiling. We have to use washing soda for removing it. Is that clear? So what are the disadvantages of hard water? That is, it is difficult to form lather with soap, so it is not suitable for washing clothes, and they form a hard crust inside the kettles and geysers. Then it is not suitable for industrial use. It damages the appliances by deposition of salts in the form of scales. Advantages are that it imparts taste to the water, and it is good for the formation of healthy bones and teeth. Is that clear? So permanent hardness can be removed by adding washing soda to such water. Then what is water pollution? So water pollution is the contamination or addition of any undesirable impurities to the water, contamination of water with unwanted or toxic substances that make it unfit for drinking. This is called water pollution. And the substances or harmful unwanted substances that contaminate the water body, they are called as water pollutants. And they include domestic sewage, industrial waste, pesticides, fertilizers, and so on. What are the various causes of water pollution? There can be chemical waste from industries and agriculture, that is the different industries, they need a large amount of water for different purposes. So, and they dump the wastewater directly into the water body lying nearby without treatment. So, apart from this, there are certain pesticides and fertilizers also which increase the crop yield, and they are a source of water pollution. As these pesticides and fertilizers are washed with rain, and they are seeped into the nearby water body and make it unfit for the aquatic life. Also make it unfit for human consumption also. Then the domestic sewage, that is the sewage which is coming out from our homes, kitchens and toilets, are also polluting the water bodies. Then human activities like bathing and washing clothes in the nearby river and lakes, and apart from that, throwing garbage in the water bodies also the cause of water pollution. Then oil spills also are a major source of water pollution, and they are posing danger to the aquatic and marine life both, that is to the aquatic plants and animals both. And thermal pollution, that is the pollution which is being caused by power plants for cooling. The water that is being used by power plants for cooling, it is being discharged into the nearby water body, because this water is very hot, and when it is discharged, it is posing a danger to the, or it is very harmful, or it is hazardous for the aquatic life, that is for the for both aquatic plants and animals. Then what are the methods of prevention control? One such method is of course organic farming. Excessive use of fertilizers and pesticides in agriculture should be discouraged, and organic farming should be encouraged. These techniques, that is crop rotation, then use of biofertilizers, manures, biological control, these are all the examples of organic farming, and these should be encouraged. Bathing of human beings and animals, washing clothes, etc., should be discouraged or should be restricted to particular areas of the water body. Then domestic and industrial sewage should be treated at the sewage treatment plant before being discharged. Use of biodegradable detergent should be encouraged, and above all things, the awareness should be there. There are programs to make the people aware of this kind of pollution. What are the various dangers of this pollution? They should be made aware of. Then water conservation. Water conservation is it refers to better utilization of the natural water resources and economic usage of the available water. And that is, in simple terms, you can say that by reducing the usage of water and recycling the wastewater for different purposes such as cleaning, manufacturing and agriculture. Then what are the various ways in which we can conserve water? We should close the taps immediately after use and repair the leaking taps. Do not leave taps running while brushing teeth, shaving or washing clothes. Keep a check over the overflow of overhead tanks and collect the water used for washing vegetables and to water the plants in the garden. Collect and store rainwater, and adopt techniques like root water harvesting of water. Plant more and more trees. So these are some of the methods by which we can conserve water. And besides this, we can also conserve water by constructing reservoirs and dams, that are large scale projects which the government has implemented, and they have built dams and reservoirs at various places in order to conserve water. So this is all for this chapter. Please revise the chapter. Allah Hafiz.